Well, the activist class now hold the reins of power, and instead of ending slavery as the British Empire did, they are ushering in a new age of racial supremacy and identity politics. How can they square this intellectually?
Well, they do it by first saying, well, if you have a country that is predominantly made up of white people, then they ipso facto make up the dominant number of people in positions of power, and they attribute our civilization to the fact that we have white skin, which I find very interesting, because they then attribute other forms of civilization to people because of the color of their skin. This actually is not the way that things work, of course. Everything is cultural interplay between civilizations, and the color of the skin really is a very new world concern. In the old world, we don't really talk about it. We talk about ethnic status, as in your English, French, German, whatever. They've all got the same skin color. But what this means ultimately is, how to phrase it.
Well, they sort of become an ultra-racist ideology, the way they behave, rather than, it's almost as if it's an excuse for their ideology rather than having to front up to the developments of a very diverse Western civilization, because they don't want to admit that Western civilization is not purely European at all. It is thousands and thousands of years of collective ideology together of different ideas.
Well, I wouldn't call it ideology, that's the thing, because an ideology is formulated in advance. What Western civilization is the product of Europeans fighting amongst themselves and then exploring the world and interacting with the world and bringing back, ideas, things, and people to Europe to understand. And so how they square it is by saying this is a racial project, and I don't really think that that's how people think about it, and I don't really think that's how these things are done. These are, you could call it a civilizational project, but that's much more flexible and inclusive. It can incorporate things from outside its own civilization. But the way to get back to your question, sorry, the way that they justify it is by simply saying we will reverse the power dynamics. So we will look and say, well, look, there are lots of white people here, and therefore white people must be powerful, and they naturally equate the exercise of power with the exercise of evil by stigmatizing any civilization, by simply creating a litany. Burke had a great term for it that is just on the tip of my tongue. A kind of just a list of crimes, civilizational crimes that the people you're attacking have committed, and then just saying, well, look, this proves that you were bad, and this is why you bring up the British Empire's legacy of ending slavery. And there are so many other things that the British Empire did to improve the quality of life for people around the world that get left off this list, because the point is to demonize them. The point is to say, well, this means you're bad, and this means you must accept that these other people who haven't done this are not bad, and therefore they are to be given preference based on whatever criteria we want, and you are to be penalized based on these criteria. And so it does, as you say, create a kind of racial supremacy. But the problem with talking about the subject is you've got to be very precise in your language, because otherwise people will deliberately misconstrue you as either intending racial supremacy, which I don't, or failing to characterize them correctly and simply being ignorant of what it is they're actually doing. But there is a long academic tradition of them essentially trying to expand and explode the definitions of these words in order to play these linguistic games to frame all white people as having done something wrong and all non-white people as being the victims of white people, which frankly is obviously ahistorical, inaccurate, nonsensical, and immoral.